I'm a minute late.
Cool. We're live. Let me get this. Welcome to the DeFi Standard. This is Patty XRP, and we got
Mickey B. Fresh.
Nice. So you guys can see today we have a brand new streaming platform. Probably saw with the last couple of videos we came out with that it looked a little different. So I know it's been pretty crappy up until now. So hopefully this should work good. We did a test on Saturday and it went pretty well. So
yeah, we did an exclusive Patreon live stream this past Saturday. It went over great. So the streaming software is great. And I guess let's get to the point that everyone's really interested in here as everyone filters in, is the recent SEC case. So I'm sure many of you listened in today. It was packed out. I think it hit the max of 4,000. So nothing surprising, but I'm going to take this as a win. So the judge wasn't as hard on the SEC as many of us possibly. I thought she might have been a little harder. But I think we got to say she's playing kind of fair here. But we did get the in-camera review, Patty. So what do you think this means for the SEC and the Ripple case going forward here with the judge getting to review the documents?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, afterwards, I know I texted you being like, that was terrible. But after you kind of said that, it was kind of lost on me what that means. So granted, we have to wait a little longer for this being resolved. It looks like possibly up to 4 weeks. We'll see if it takes that long. Ripple said they would try and do their portion in a quicker period of time. But basically, since the SEC had been leveraging this, what's called DPP, which is basically privileged process, as far as what documents can be reviewed by the Ripple team and all that. So I think a lot of us have speculated with all the optics surrounding this case, there could be, damning information towards the SEC's case in this regard. So now at least the judge is going to get to see what Ripple has been saying is overreach on the SEC's part. And she'll be making the final decision as she gets to actually review these documents that the SEC is going to line up. Now, what could happen with that? The SEC may redact a bunch of stuff. They also may not provide enough information based on what Ripple believes they know they have, whether it's from tips from people they know in the industry or maybe some of their lawyers, like Mary Jo White that used to work there, may know of things floating around. So she can always go back and get a court order. Yeah, well, okay, she's commissioner. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, at least she's going to look And yeah, I mean, that was pretty much, nothing really else came out of that case other than they need to look over those, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And now the judge said that it's going to be I think 19 or was it 29 documents plus the 11 that were given to Ripple, but they were very redacted. So now she's going to be able to look over these and see, is there anything in there that's going to be relevant to the case? So I think when you look at it as a fair concept, I think it's fair. The judge is going to look and say, well, if this isn't deliberative process, we could use this. If there's nothing damning in there, then it will get released to the public. If it's something that, is, corruption or things like that, I don't know if they would release that or they would keep that, under seal possibly. But this also, to play with devil's advocate on what you said, Patty, it's possible if there is really damaging evidence in there just for the case itself, it's possible. I mean, it's possible here, and I spoke to a couple people, that we could see then the SEC move to settlement if they see that the information that's going to come out of here is going to be so damning to their side of the case, and it's going to give Ripple's fair notice just overwhelming evidence to basically win. Do we see the SEC now come to the table and try to settle? That's the question. We don't know. What do you think on that?
I mean, I still hold the belief that a settlement is how this will eventually end up. Our buddy Brooklyn sent me a voice note after seeing my tweet after the hearing happened. And, he was like, this just seems like a dog and pony show where they're just dragging it out at this point. And then whoever blinks first, they'll get a settlement lined up. Now, if you go by, I know Jeremy Hogan put out a video this weekend saying that he wouldn't expect a settlement until, I believe, after expert discovery, which is, I think, November 12th. So that would mean a couple more months of this. However, let's say at the end of September, it turns out that there was stuff that the SEC said that really hurts any of their ability. So, to keep going with what they're trying to prosecute at this point. So we'll have to see what happens there. But to me, it seems like we'll have there won't be a settlement in September. At least to me, it seems like that.
I can't rule it out, though. I mean, it's so hard to speculate on this. It really is. If you're going to say, oh, there could be a settlement, we don't have all the information that's going on behind the scenes. So even like the lawyers that are in the community, they're great. And I thank Hogan and Deaton and James Fillon for all the information they put out. It's just so hard to speculate when you don't know what the settlement negotiations are, even at what, how close are they really? Are they a canyon apart, or is there a couple things? And I think this still comes down to the SEC wants Ripple to register with them. Now, what does register mean? This is what the whole investigation and leading up to the enforcement action was. They want them to register the way Kin, the way Block One. So a win would not be the same thing that Block One had and Kin had. That's not a win in our book. That would be that everything that Ripple does with their XRP would be at a securities regulation. Ripple does not want that. So there's no situation here where Ripple accepts a settlement that they have, their XRP that they have is a security. So I know some people have floated that in the community, and it's just like, I shake my head, because if that was the case, it would have already happened. They're not going to agree to a settlement with restrictions. And I think it's really hard to say that, oh, well, they could have some restrictions but not be registered. I think it's kind of one or the other here. And I think that's where they're like a canyon apart on some of the settlement negotiations. And, it's possible we get the settlement after all the information is out there. They see everything's on the table. Does Ripple have enough to win on fair notice? There's still a couple decisions that Torres has to make, which is the intervention from Deaton, the fair notice defense, the Slack documents, and she just ruled on this one, so we got finally one ruling. And then also Brad and Chris's. Now, Brad and Chris's charges could be thrown out. I mean, she made it seem like we're pretty close to that in the arguments. I'm not sure if Netburn could dismiss those charges, or it's the other judge, Torres, who could dismiss the Brad and Chris, basically saying reckless. And they were kind of arguing that in the case today. Now, how would that play out if we get a dismissal of that? There's things that could happen prior to a settlement too, and this would be one of those things if that gets dismissed. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that was interesting because I was sitting there thinking like, oh, this is really weird how she started off this hearing today, and that it seemed like she didn't really agree with what the SEC was saying in regards to the aiding and abetting charges against Larson and Garlinghouse. To me, that thing was those two's lawsuit against them was always probably a foregone conclusion that it would eventually get thrown out. But we'll have to see. I mean, they still have their deposition coming up with Garlinghouse and Larson. So, while we may think there's stuff on the SEC side, there certainly could be stuff on Ripple's side, as far as, getting them to pay more in a settlement or whatever it's going to be based on stuff that maybe Garlinghouse or Larson may have said or did over the course of 8 years or so now, which is a long time. But the thing that bothers me the most, and somebody mentioned in here, Deaton in the chat, and I kind of it's just really annoying because we have the SEC and Ripple going back and forth with one another. Ripple's, their whole concern is their business, not necessarily all of us. The SEC's concern is clearly not us, even though they like to say that. And their concern is more having control over the crypto markets, and what companies are able to do with it in the US. So there's a large swath of us out there, the rest of the XRP community, that has, no say still in this. And it's been 4 months since Deaton, put out his big time, his documentation filing that he had. So it's just, I'm getting very annoyed at this point by the whole thing. Because oh yeah, let's wait another month for something that's been pushed off for 3 or 4 months at this point. It's just, people can say, court cases go really long and all that, especially with big business. But the fact that they, it's not just big business. They drug all of us into there. And so that's what bothers me the most at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is annoying that it keeps going longer, but at least we do have set dates to where this is going to end. There's no oh, this is ongoing forever. There is a set date that we're basically at the end of fact discovery. They're going to do those depositions, and in another month or so, we're going to be done with, the full discovery. Does something happen in between there? It's very possible. Another thing here is she didn't rule yet, Judge Torres, on his intervention. That doesn't mean it's not happening. She could rule at any time. And like you said, we don't have a say. And there's a lot of the community right now, and I thank DAI and everyone else who has drummed up different damning evidence against the SEC, because they tried to play this Queen's Gambit, which Jeremy Hogan explained, where they kind of sacrificed the lack of fair notice and let Ripple in on that by saying, well, Ether and Bitcoin we're not saying they're not securities anymore. We never ruled on that. And now they're pulling that back. And meanwhile, there's all this evidence that shows that they absolutely did say those were not securities. Because then if they did say that and they admitted it in court, then that would allow Ripple to argue, well, XRP is just like Ethereum and Bitcoin. And I thought it was interesting how Tenero kept bringing up, well, they keep saying that their asset's unique, their asset's unique, their asset's unique. I don't know where he was going with that. What do you think of that? He kept saying that.
Yeah, I was so confused by that, because I thought part of the argument was the fact that Ethereum was said to not be a security, whether that's official or not, but people obviously took it that way. In that XRP is very similar to Ethereum in the fact that it's blockchain, it's decentralized, it didn't even have an ICO. So I don't know what he was talking about, all this uniqueness. The whole thing with the Telegram case, why it's different, or the Kick, because they didn't have any allegations against aiding and abetting against any of the people that were running those businesses. So I don't know. He kind of rambled on for a really long time. And Mickey, I see. So Kashta, Tariq in the chat was saying the judge is hinting to the SEC they are in trouble and the SEC is grabbing for straws, which I mean, I can kind of see that, because I mean, she is, every time I feel like we have a hearing, she's arguing against the SEC people, especially Tenrero, whenever he speaks. And I don't really see her having as much discussion about what they think with the Ripple team. So, it's just very interesting to me. And I think that's a good point that, maybe we get down here and she either sees the documents or they keep hiding them and stuff. And she starts, really being like, you guys should settle this, and moving it along in that way. But we'll have to see. I think we'll have another month of waiting, more than likely.
It's likely. I mean, she has to be fair here, because if she comes down too hard on the SEC and those things, it leaves open for mistrial and appeals. So I think they're trying to be as fair as possible to judges. They know there's a lot of public attention on this. They know that things are going to be cited in the future. So all these decisions right now, she said she does what she typically always does. she does in-camera review. So it was very difficult for the SEC to argue why the judge can't see this stuff. She's the neutral bystander here who's judging the case. She's not the government. The government is the SEC. The judicial system is supposed to keep checks and balances here, and that's why we have, judges and juries and the whole court system and legal system to keep checks and balances. So it's not like the government they're not going to not let the SEC lose. Like, I don't agree with that. I think that the SEC, what they've done, they brought this case kind of in vain, I guess. They don't have really solid evidence to say that Brad and Chris recklessly sold these things as digital securities, and they knew they were securities when Coinbase obviously listed XRP thinking it's not a security. Chris Giancarlo says this is not a security. And then you have the whole confusion in the marketplace where Hester Pierce has come out and said, Elon Roisman, there's no clarity in the market. But then at the same time, you have the SEC saying, well, Ethereum and Bitcoin, we're giving them clarity in the market. But no, we're pulling that back now. And I think that has to come into play at some point in this case, that the SEC wants it kind of both ways here. And, at some point, that's going to hit a head. So how much longer, can this go on where they could keep trying to play both sides? I think it's going to hit a head at some point. It's just so hard to predict a settlement. It's so difficult because we don't know what's going on actually behind the scenes right now.
No, yeah, that's very true. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, I guess like her taking a look at this and like forcing them to hand it over. I mean, Tenrero actually did like 10 minutes of trying to convince her in a roundabout way not to do that. And then she was like, nah, I'm going to do that. So
yeah.
I was kind of like, did you just ask him to watch him flounder? But I thought that was kind of funny.
She yelled at him for screwing up subjective and objective too.
Yeah, well, he ranted for like 20 minutes after that because what was it, Solomon, I believe, or Kellogg, one of the two, who spoke first. Solomon, yeah. And he was like, pretty short and to the point. It's objective because of these cases. And then she largely agreed with it. And then Tenrero went on and, was like, oh, it's objective. And then started arguing about subjectivity around what Brad Garlinghouse thought and stuff like that. So,
she wasn't having it.
Yeah. Somebody actually audibly laughed during that. If you're listening to the hearing, yeah, it was one of those like where it just cuts through. But I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I actually got kicked out when I first started. When it first went on, and I had to go through Lars on like a Zoom 3-way to listen. But I was able to listen, fortunately. But yeah, I got booted like right when it started. It sucked.
Yeah.
But I got to listen. I'm glad, they should really raise it from 4,000 people because that thing was maxed out. You would think that, hey, last time it was maxed out, maybe we should go to 8,000 or 10,000. But they definitely limited it. And I think it's good just for the community to continue digging up this stuff and, showing how the SEC is trying to play both sides and everything and how making them look bad. And there is a borderline here of corruption. I mean, it is possible. Now, what if some of those SEC employees were trading XRP or held XRP before all of this and the SEC did nothing? And how does that then affect the case? Is that like a smoking gun? What kind of smoking guns do you think could come out of these actual documents when the judge sees them?
I think things that state that we don't think XRP is a security right now. It doesn't seem like that. Anything that kind of adds to the potential for confusion in the marketplace around the status of XRP as an asset and whether, Ripple should be liable for having sold it if really nobody could reasonably think that it, wasn't a crypto. Which, I mean, I bet if you went on, if we could do a poll that got everybody that's ever bought XRP, I bet 99% of the people would have thought it was a cryptocurrency, which is not a security. So it's just kind of like insane to me. Like it never even crossed my mind, which I mean, I guess is part of my fault for when I bought it, not thinking that risk was there. But had it been, with how long XRP has been on the market and then what happened with Ethereum, it really just seemed like, yeah, this is, a similar thing. No ICO, you got validators, decentralization and things of that nature. So really, I mean, all I'm looking for is if we can just get the XRP is not a security going forward. I mean, that's really all we need. So
I agree on that. I don't see Brad and Chris's settling out. I don't think they're going to accept some slap on the wrist.
Oh, I think that'll get dropped. Yeah. Because I mean, they're going to be less
dropped.
likely to want to pay.
Yeah, exactly. So there are different components here to on the settlement side. That one is probably most likely to be thrown out. They already asked for dismissal on it. And I don't see Brad and Chris, their lawyers, accepting, oh, a slap on the wrist fine when they feel like they did nothing wrong. And they're pretty good at convincing, that charge should have never been brought. That was something even Grunfest, and I put the video up on Twitter a few months ago when he interviewed Jay Clayton. And he said, if you bring somebody to the stand, and that was if there was fraud or other things, it's very hard to prove that case. Now they brought these charges against Brad and Chris. They didn't claim fraud. They didn't claim any kind of scam or illegal criminal activity. They just said, oh, they recklessly sold these digital securities. And they believed they were digital securities. And meanwhile, how can everyone else think they're not digital securities, but Brad and Chris thought they were? So I think they're going to win on that. So I don't see why that would settle. There's nothing pointing to settlement on Brad and Chris's charges. When it comes to the selling of investment contracts early on, that's possibly could be settled. That's the Ripple side. So if Brad and Chris's is dropped, that means those lawyers for them are out, and it's just now Ripple versus the SEC. My question would be, well, how does that charge that you just said, XRP being a digital security in the marketplace? And can a settlement even give full clarity to the marketplace from the SEC? Or does it need to be the court by law that gives the clarity? What can be written in the settlement by the SEC that would basically give the marketplace, not just Ripple, but the exchanges like Coinbase, market participants, institutions, hedge funds, from holding XRP and not feeling like the SEC is going to come after them? That would be what kind of verbiage would be written in a settlement, and even can it? Or does it need to go to summary judgment and then Judge Torres actually put in there, XRP is not a digital security? That's my question.
Yeah, I mean,
not for you, just in general.
No, in general, yeah, I totally get it. I mean, to me, just the idea of this case, like possibly, setting precedent for the cryptocurrency industry. I don't know how strongly I feel about that, especially we already see Congress and everything started trying to push cryptocurrency regulations through, whether, they were fully thought out, or maybe they were, and they were just, bad against cryptocurrency. But to me, I just think at this point, all we need is Ripple should be focused on getting XRP clarity. Worrying about the entire escrow. Crypto industry at this point, to me, well, yeah, their escrow is part of that. Yeah, that's their business part. So I guess I should say that. But yeah, I just don't really see the point of getting clarity through the SEC when it can be overwritten by Congress. Like, we need laws from Congress. I think that's more important than things that the SEC does at this point to give the space clarity.
Mm-hmm. But see, it's not about the point of Ripple needing to sell XRP for their business model. That's not why when the escrow comes to it, they want to be able to utilize and deploy that XRP in many different ways. If that's lending, if it's paying rewards, it's like coupons, rebates, any way they want to use that XRP, or even just gift it out, however they want to do it. They want the freedom to be able to use it as they please. And it's not about just, oh, they're going to hold this escrow and then they're, for monetary value, going to be worth trillions of dollars. That's not Ripple's intention with the escrow. It never was. This is why, the escrow shouldn't be looked at as its monetary value in dollars. It's how it's deployed to boost the ecosystem and boost adoption. Every other crypto network, look how the extra inflation and the extra tokens are used. How are they used? So they're used to reward validators. They're used to reward miners, market participants, network. That's exactly how the XRP is going to be used from the escrow, in just different types of ways, maybe more on an institutional side, but possibly eventually to a retail side too eventually. It's not like, oh, this thing's going to be handed over to Treasury, because it doesn't have that type of value. No other crypto does that. So why would XRP be any unique in that way?
I don't think it would.
No, but it's the lending that I think is key, is the ability for a credit facility. They're able to lend this out, and no other crypto has that ability.
Absolutely. And here's a interesting question in the chat, Mickey. So Castro was asking, in our point of view, is there a risk that XRPL may be late to the NFT movement with amendments still taking time? So obviously they're working on the NFT amendments. They will have some, I believe, working NFT capabilities on the testnet here shortly, based on what Matt Hamilton was saying. But for me, so my answer is no, but it's no because currently the NFT craze that's happening is just like this digital art or having an avatar on Twitter. Or you could say like, what's it called? Land in like a metaverse, an NFT in that way. For me, there's much bigger implications for the use of NFTs beyond that stuff. So I really think the NFT industry is only at the very beginning stages of what eventually NFTs will be big for. So I don't think it's late. Also, Ethereum has the most like NFT capabilities, or I guess most market share for NFTs, and we already know it's extremely expensive to mint. It's extremely expensive to transfer them and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of room to grow, and I don't really think there's going to be one blockchain that dominates the NFT space. I think it'll just be more dependent on like how good the project around the NFTs are, where that value goes in the long run. And these NFTs are going to be used for stuff like we use in supply chain. We've covered audit chain in the past that's using NFTs for accounting logic and stuff like that. That's a really unique use case. We've seen, research around using NFTs as tranches and bonds. So that's all stuff that's like new and coming. And then let alone not even speaking to like basically getting to the point where like all movies that you own are NFTs, or you could do that with music albums in the future and things of that nature. So I just think there's a lot, like the NFT industry is extremely nascent and it will expand much greater than it is right now. So that's my take on it. But what do you think, Nikki?
I agree with that. I think we're very early, and I don't think XRP Ledger's missed the boat, but I think it's important that they get going on this now. So if they weren't doing anything for this, I would say, okay, it's probably time to do something. They've started talking about this months ago. Now, there was an initial NFT proposal by Witte Win, which was just a basic one. They were going to use, just the ends of like the decimal place of XRP. But now the proposal, if you look at it on GitHub or on the foundation website, it's a massive proposal for NFTs. It's probably one of the most expansive amendments ever to the XRP ledger, because they're adding 3 new objects to the ledger. So they're really going all out with this NFT amendment. It's not just like, oh, we're just going to add a little NFTs. They're really integrating it deeply, not just on the side chains, but into the main chain, where you're going to have this whole metadata. So you're going to be able to create NFTs, add all this deep, rich metadata to the background by the creators, and then you're going to have the marketplace. So these things are going to be able to trade on the XRP Ledger DEX. And there was some talk in that standard I found interesting, is that they could almost use the NFTs like as wallets providers and some other cool different things on the XRP Ledger that I don't remember off the top of my head, but there is a discussion in the standards section of the XRP Ledger Foundation discussion board. So if you want to check that out, there's some good discussion between like Nick Bougalas, David Schwartz, Witte Win, and they discuss, this proposal. It's pretty in-depth. Things like letters of credit, and I think there's financial instruments that we haven't seen yet develop that will tie in then with DeFi. Like look at, for example, just here's an example, the Samurai NFT that Flare Finance is giving out. It's a digital art, but at the same time, it comes with a percentage of the revenue that is basically from the Flare Finance ecosystem. That revenue is paid out to the NFT holders. And I think that's a unique use case, that you're basically taking some of those fees and siphoning them out to NFT holders in the ecosystem. So if we see NFTs like that, that's just the tip of the iceberg here. So I don't think they missed the boat yet. I think Flare will be first by far, because they have the same standards. Remember, all the Ethereum standards, as like ERC 721, 1155, are going to be the same standards that are on the Flare network. Just like ERC 20s will probably be like something like FLR 20. So we'll see the same smart contracts deployed on Flare that are on Ethereum.
Yes. Yeah. And so, I mean, we've already seen like Gala originally started on Ethereum and now they're on Binance Smart Chain. They'll be on the Flare network. Sparkle's going to make NFTs on the Flare network. Then we have these Aesthetics project that wants to do NFTs on the XRP Ledger. And then what is that? Is it Locks Network?
Smart
we're
NFT.
seeing how legit that one is. I want to see their white paper and website when that comes out, but I know they're engaging with the community and trying to do something called a smart NFT. So it'll definitely be interesting how that expands. But I mean, the XRP Ledger, I think, has a lot of a solid base for NFTs to go on, and the fact that really cheap transactions for minting, transferring, and all of that kind of stuff, I think will be more, your average person like friendly rather than going on Ethereum and doing it. As far as people that aren't into them yet as much.
Yeah, and then things like you're gonna see more X apps through Zum, and Zum will be able to hold NFTs. Even on Flare Network, Bifrost will be able to hold NFTs in the wallet there, which is going to be nice. So we'll see more and more NFTs. I just don't know if digital art is the only, like, that's the big use case right now, but I think that's going to change. And we've heard that a lot from industry insiders. But I have no question it's going to be a huge marketplace. We're just so early, and it's hard to predict. It's like, could if you predicted Twitter, Facebook, and all these things that came about after when the internet boom first started, or streaming like Zoom and Skype, you would have never known in the 90s, because we didn't have the broadband to do it and the platform. The thing that's different here with crypto and NFTs is we have the internet. The internet didn't have the internet. And Miguel Villas has said that. And I always thought that was really huge. Like, just the ability to communicate on social platforms, like all this evidence we're digging up against the SEC, all this development of crypto and social media platforms and the sharing and the public nature. XRP Ledger is a public decentralized blockchain. Anybody could build on it. Nobody could stop anyone from building on it. Same goes for Flare. Anyone could build on it, unless it's a Spark dependent application. That will need governance approval.
Yeah, and Mickey, to add in here, thinking about long term with NFTs, we have these metaverse spaces that are growing, and it, almost seems like it's a foregone conclusion that the world will, metaverses could be pretty big in the future. Just from sci-fi, pop culture, and all those things kind of point to it, to me at least. And, based on how many people and how much value goes into these metaverses, and whether any of the ones are, being created now will be ones that are used in the future, if it's some new technology that comes out that kind of boosts that, think about how much ad space and all that kind of stuff that could be sold to, just retail brands out there. Anybody really, like, they're going to have ads in these games, probably more than likely in metaverse, where you can just buy a plot of land that's an NFT. And you can stick your billboard up or something like that within the world. Like, that stuff wouldn't shock me seeing that in the future, especially like if you're just paying for the NFT, you can certainly do whatever you want with it. So, I mean, that's just like another huge space that it could grow with NFTs. So I just think there's so much room for that whole ecosystem, or really sector of crypto, to grow in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's pivot the discussion over to the upcoming Songbird launch, which is now going to be in the next, we say, week or two, hoping to hear some announcements shortly. Also, we have the Bifrost wallet test beta that's out right now that you could download. Also, upcoming is going to be the new Probity DAO Vault beta, and that's going to be in a private Flare testnet. So that's exciting to see that we're going to be able to test that a little, and that will also be deployed on the Songbird network. Now, if you do, here's one question I get a lot, and I think we could try to answer this one. What happens if I don't receive my Songbird on the exchange that I held XRP on 12/20, 12/12/20? How can I participate in Songbird? Well, if the exchange doesn't release it to you right away, now they're receiving it. So it's not about Coinbase saying, oh, they're going to support or not. They're receiving the Songbird. The question is, will they distribute it to their customers? So that's one thing we're going to have to keep pressuring them as we get closer to the launch. And once one domino falls, they'll probably all fall. But if you don't receive it right away, how can you participate, Patty?
On Songbird would be to go and purchase it from an exchange for more than likely a very low price per token. Yes. Like, I would guess less than a penny.
We think it's going
to be my guess. Yeah.
Yeah. We have Patty and I have a slightly different opinion on this, and that's okay. We don't.
I'm always too bearish on stuff.
He's too bearish. I'm too bullish. but that's okay. We balance. I think it'll be a little over a penny. I mean, the best reference for we could get for Songbird is what Kasama did with Polkadot and how they launched. The difference here is that unlike Kusama, Songbird's going to have most of its functionality out the gate. And this is something else I really want to touch on here. I know people complain about the delays and, oh, they said this date, I want my token. But there's something really important to understand about when Flare launches. When Flare launches, it's going to have full decentralization of the consensus. It's going to have one of the rarest things ever in crypto, a full fair distribution of the native token. And it's also going to have built-in governance on top of that. So having those three components and smart contracts out the gate is some of the hardest things you could do when you launch. Look at Cardano. 5 years to get their stuff in order. 5 years it took. Flare's going to come out, have all of that ready to go when it launches. And I think that's kind of overlooked because a lot of people in the community, and not to knock anybody, they just look at things on the surface. Where's my tokens? You said this date. That's all I want to know. I don't want to look further. I don't want to look deeper. Well, you said this. Even though you didn't invest any money, look at what's coming when it does launch. And how does that affect the development of the network? And it's going to be already ahead of Cardano before when it launches. You know, not to say it's going to be higher value or anything. It's going to have full capabilities, which I think is huge. You're going to have Ethereum smart contracts. You're going to have a fair distribution model by airdropping to an established monster community in the XRP army and having the decentralization, which bootstraps off these other 4 blockchains, is key. How many networks can bootstrap decentralization? Most of them need proof of stake because they need those tokens to distribute the value to get the validators to run them. You don't need that on Flare. So that opens up new opportunities for network rewards.
Yeah. So for me, I will say for anybody that's been asking when Flare or when Songbird, I think, you know, if we don't hear anything from the Flare team by Friday, then I think it's totally warranted to start saying when Songbird and when Flare, wherever you go. I would like to hear something this week because they did put in that last blog, they would launch within 6 weeks and we're coming up on that time. And it would be nice to know if it's going to happen next week or not. I know like it's fun, like, you know, if we have to wait another week longer than that, just say it. But since, you know, you did put 6 weeks in the blog, let's hear what's going on and how close we actually are to launching Songbird. That's how I feel though. So
yeah, I think we're deserving of now. They said 6 weeks. We should get a time. If it's 2 weeks now, 3 weeks, just tell us when it's going to happen so we could prepare for it, push on the exchanges more. And, you know, I know they're dealing with a lot of security orders and stuff, but I think we do deserve to hear something in the next week. If it's by Friday or early next week, we deserve to hear something on an upcoming date. Because Songbird's not a test net. And I've heard other people say that. I'm like, no, not a test net. It's a main net, just a canary network to Flare. It's not a test network. Even though it acts as testing, it's real value. Test nets involve no value. Like, look at how Cardano did things. They had like Alfonso blue, green, purple, yellow, because they don't have a canary network. And this ability to have the canary network there, I think is really going to be powerful with building adoption for institutions and enterprises. And I think we're going to see a lot more institutional enterprise adoption on Flare than many of the other blockchains out there in the future, you know, in the near future, where they start all as community grassroots efforts. Yes, we're going to have a community adoption rate here because all the community is getting it. And for those saying, oh, Ripple's in control of this, no, that's just absolute nonsense. Because Ripple has no influence over Flare when they launch. They get none of the tokens, therefore they have no influence over the governance of the network. So how would they be dictating anything? They're also a minority stakeholder. So they have no real influence at all when the network goes live. So why would they have an influence prior to the network going live? I would understand that if they were, one, a huge investor and one of the only ones, and two, if they were getting tokens and we're going to have an influence and we're building something on the network. We don't know what RippleX is building yet, but Hugo has said RippleX, or formerly known as Spring, was very interested in building something. And we know Trustline is building that basically Trustline network, which is going to be on Flare and also on the XRP Ledger.
Yeah. I do want to add, just because I saw a lot of comments in the chat around price, just because I think that it will drop, come out below a penny. Doesn't
Songbird.
mean, yeah, sorry, what did I say? Flare?
You didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Relating back to Songbird price, just because I think it will come out very low doesn't mean I'm not bullish on it long term personally.
Patty's just trying to get it really cheap.
Yeah,
Patty
that's what it is.
Get it really cheap.
I will also say, like, I'm looking to test things that I will do on Flare on Songbird. So that will involve me investing capital into Songbird, regardless of the price, in participating in the experimental finance platform. I want to get, my hands dirty with the liquidity pool between Songbird and the Canary Dollar. And then I also want to utilize Songbird tokens in the Flare Loans platform that's going to be on experimental finance. So I want to try both of that stuff out. By virtue of that, I'll be able to get into Flare Farm and stake to get DFLR. So, I mean, there is a certain amount of money that I want to put into it. It's just, how quickly I'm willing to do that right off the bat will be a question. If, the price of Songbird is, where the market cap's maybe 500 million when it comes out, which I don't think it will be, I would probably be more weary to put my money in at that point and maybe wait for it to sell off. But, where you buy is going to be up to you. And some people will be happier just getting their hands on some than waiting and trying to play that game. So I totally get that. But I'm definitely, looking to get into Songbird for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking to do more of a dollar cost average thing. Songbird might be the higher risk when it comes to the price capital appreciation over time, where I think Spark has a better bet at coming out at a higher price and having that capital appreciation go not right away but in a shorter time here, because that's where all the bigger apps are going to go. And also the F asset system is going to earn you rewards on Flare, where if you mint S assets, which are the equivalent on Songbird, you're not going to get rewarded. Now, this is another important component of Flare. I think that's important. The distribution of the native token is split in two ways. There's the airdrop component, which you'll get 15% upfront, and then 3% for the 2 to 3 years after. But the other component of the distribution is going to come from, it's called fair distribution, from those who mint F assets. 20 to 25 billion Spark, which is probably roughly about what's going to go to the airdrop, is going to go to those who mint F assets. That's not inflation. That's part of that 100 billion supply. So those tokens are going to continuously get airdropped daily to the people who mint FXRP and hold it on the Flare network, or FLTC, or FXLM, or FDoge. It might even be up to 30 million because Litecoin has its own pool. So that's the other component of the distribution here. Just part of it is Flare, is the Flare airdrop. The other component, F asset reward. So keep that in mind. And those things are considered fair distribution models, because it's nobody getting more than the other. It's if you do something like minting FXRP, you then receive the token. So you have to do some effort. And the same goes to the airdrop. You had to hold XRP on that date to get Spark. So you don't get it just free. It's kind of free with the airdrop, but you had to put some effort. So one or two things here to go forward. So I think that will move value and transfer it to the people who are participating in the network long term. Now, delegating to the signal providers, that is considered the network rewards. And now let's talk more about network rewards, Patty. We hear a lot about DeFi, and we'll go into that a little before we wrap this up. But what are network rewards on typical networks?
Yeah, so I mean, starting off, first thing you can think of, we have Cardano, Polkadot, Algorand. They all have proof of stake networks, and they utilize staking. So the rewards that are being paid out come from the inflation of the native asset. And that is to help with the security of the network. So that's a network reward that's coming out. At least that's what we call it. I don't know if there's some other more official term. I've never really seen one, Mickey. So I do like network rewards. Also, you can think about it as with the Flare network, we have the Flare time series Oracle, which is built on chain. So that is delivering the inflation of the Spark token over time. And that is something that would be a network reward as well. And then I would also add in like F asset minting. While the F asset system is a dApp, they're delivering the native asset Spark. Like part of the distribution method is to give it to people to incentivize them to bring value on the network. So that's a network reward. Now, what would be something that isn't a network reward? Well, that's stuff like if you're on Flare Finance or a trust line and you're earning interest for maybe providing collateral so people can mint the Ore stablecoin, or, you know, maybe you're in a liquidity pool providing liquidity. That would be like DeFi rewards that you're getting. And that generally comes with the term yield farming as like an overreaching term. And then there's kind of subsets. So like the way you earn YFIN is via liquidity mining, which means that basically you provide liquidity to liquidity pools, and then you're able to mine some other token that's being distributed to incentivize you to provide liquidity. Oh, you're muted, Mickey. Yeah.
Nope, sorry, I'm here. Yes, and I think, well, one that's interesting is the F asset. It's kind of like an in-between, because it is distributing the native token out, more of it, but in itself, it's kind of an application. So we call that a special application called Spark-dependent applications. It means that all Spark holders govern the F asset system. So that means that percentage fee that you pay to mint F assets, the redemption fee, and other components of the collateral ratio of different assets, of different F assets, and also to bring on new F assets. So we, as Spark owners, govern that, and we make that decision. So the more Spark you keep building up, you have then more of an influence over the network. So everybody who is an XRP holder and is receiving the airdrop, you have an advantage. You're going to think of you like the founding fathers of this network. And how many networks in the past have you truly been able to get into at the ground floor? We all look at those charts and be like, wow, I wish I would have gone in Aave when it was really low, or I would have got in, you know, whatever it was, XRP when it was really low in the beginning. Now we have that capability with Songbird and Spark. You know, it might not go to the moon right out the gate, but you have the ability to accumulate a lot of the native network tokens. And I think in the future, it would be nice if the metrics of coin market caps, coin geckos, and live coin watches, coin paprika would separate native blockchain tokens from dApp tokens and layer 2 tokens. You know, now they have it just as like DeFi tokens, and not all blockchains.
They have Avalanche as a DeFi token.
Yeah, like DeFi tokens technically should be like the dApp tokens. Native blockchains, you know, I know they do that. It's not a bad thing, I think, but I think that there should be more value in these native tokens, XRPs, the Bitcoins, you know, and other things. One other thing I wanted to talk about here is I think we all are aware of certain tokens, certain coins have started to really pop off, blow up, right? We have Solana blown up. We have Cardano blown up. We have today DOT and Kusama really taken off. We saw Luna really take off, and Avalanche really take off. So what is that now? These are what? Smart contract, advanced blockchains. And what else do they have, Patty, that's different than Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP currently?
They have native yield.
Yeah.
That's one thing I don't hear talked about much from the TA guys and from the market is, well, why is it that these tokens are exploding now recently? 70% of Polkadot DOT tokens are staked. Means you can't sell them while they're staked. 28 days. Even Atom with Cosmos and Kava, when they're locked here, that creates storage demand. Those tokens, those coins can't be traded on the secondary market. So you're inherently creating storage demand and you're creating yield. Somebody who's earning 15% of that same token that's capital appreciating, they're going to be less likely to sell it. And they can't always sell it on a whim because, oh, the price went down. They have 28 days of unbonding. Now, the unbonding periods are different for different networks. On Polkadot, it's 28 days, but you receive the staking rewards for all those. On Cosmos and Kava, it's only 21 days, but you don't receive the rewards in those time. Now, With Flare and Spark is going to be really unique because everyone who's delegating their Spark tokens to an FTSO are not going to be able to trade those simultaneously on an exchange. But you will be able to remove those from a signal provider, and you'll be able to delegate to up to 3 signal providers at one time based on the percentage of your Spark holdings. So that's going to remove assets from Spark from the secondary market. Then you have the Spark that's used as collateral in the F asset system. Now that's going to lock up even more Spark. But typically those who are able to lock up Spark is going to have to go through a regulated entity, and you're also going to be able to simultaneously delegate to the FTSO. So Spark has this unique feature on Flare where you could earn rewards, network rewards, in 2 ways simultaneously. And you'll also be able to do that, like Patty was saying, with Flare loans. You'll be able to take Spark, put it in as collateral, borrow against it, and simultaneously earn the FTSO rewards. So this is going to drive storage demand over time for these assets. So utility is important and storage demand is important. Flare designed the system in a way where you could earn the network rewards and keep the asset off the secondary exchanges, and also have the utility of that asset to be deployed and unlock its value in DeFi and other applications on the Flare blockchain. Now, other networks like Polkadot and the other Bifrost that's in the parachain, how do they unlock that value of staked assets, Patty?
Yeah, so for Bifrost Finance on Polkadot, which is going to be a parachain once they start those off looking like Q4 sometime, basically they'll allow you to have derivatives of the dot that you bond behind a parachain, and then you'll also have a derivative bond-like token that allows you to sell off the rewards that you're going to accrue over time for having bonded your dot behind that parachain. So I think that's really interesting, especially if you're worried about the opportunity cost of locking up dot for 2 years behind a parachain. Even though you're going to earn some of those rewards, what if dot, let's just say something and went really high to like $200, that may be a place where you want to sell some. So, being able to have these liquid derivatives for staked or locked assets really opens up kind of the liquidity of it and allows the velocity of money to pick up. So yeah, that's how that one works. I think it's very, very interesting. Yeah. And then
and go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I just was going to say, so I have on the screen right here, this is called DeFi Llama. It looked like the easiest one to deal with as far as keeping statistics on DeFi. Also had a lot of different projects on it. But if we look at, here's Solana, their total value locked, we can see in, let's see, end of June, they're about 500 million, and it's gone up to over $3.4 billion, or right at that to this date. So you can see they've had a huge increase, like 3x in the past month or 2 months in their TVL. And we see that, reflected in the price of Solana. So also we can go down here looking at some of their projects that have high TVLs. They have 2, 4, 6, 7 that are over $100 million. So we can see how like these ecosystems are growing and how the TVL numbers for Solana went up a ton. And then Avalanche also had the same kind of thing happen recently as they just launched their smart contracts. So this is them around, I think, when they started launching, and then they have taken off in total value locked. Yeah, the price is retracing now, but it's still up much higher than it was, just a month ago. So I just wanted to point out how both of those are going live. Cardano is going to have that soon. Flare will have that soon, and so will Polkadot. Also like Binance has been out for a while now, and they have some pretty high TVL numbers, 17.4 at this point. But obviously, Ethereum's the big leader in still having the swath of assets within their DeFi protocols. But I just find it very interesting that those two, Solana and Avalanche, have taken off recently, and their total value locked has been increasing by multiples over the past couple of months. You know, we can even look at Terra here. Luna took off recently, and that also saw a pretty similar rise here. So obviously these are going to go up and down as the market corrects and stuff. But you can see we had this first little bull run. Let's say we'll go for the entire market. So right here peaking out in May, and you know, falls down, and then we're back. So you can see how kind of like the prices in these assets are also starting to mirror like how the market's moving, which makes sense because, you know, if the assets that are locked up decrease in price, the same thing happens. But you can be on the lookout for projects that, you know, are seeing actual use of their DeFi protocols and assets being locked in them and things like that. So I just found that interesting. This is DeFi Llama too, if you ever want to check it out. You still there, Mickey? Can't hear you. All right. Cool. Well, I don't know if Mickey just dropped off or not, but I'm going to go ahead and end this since we're about, almost an hour in. Appreciate you guys in the chat with all the comments and stuff. And, we'll be back hopefully later this week with another one. But with that, I'm Patty XRP. This is the DeFi Standard. You guys have a great one. We're out.